Hi there, I'm Delphine. My sister mocked me at every family dinner, smiled while cutting me down in front of people who clapped for her louder each year. But what she didn't know? I was quietly signing her $220,000 bonus, behind a name she never bothered to ask about. What happens when the quiet one stops playing along and starts rewriting the rules? Charlotte, North Carolina. Early spring, but the morning felt like late fall. Bright sun, cold air, and something sharper in the silence between bites of Eggs Benedict. We were seated at the same round table we always used at the neighborhood brunch spot, a place my mother liked because the booths were good for conversation. I never had much to say. Janelle was mid-story about a former coworker who had clearly been threatened by her presence. She flipped her hair when she spoke, like punctuation. My mother nodded dutifully. My father laughed at the right moments. I stirred my coffee, watching the cream swirl, waiting for my turn not to speak. "So what are you up to these days, Del?" one of the cousins asked casually, almost kindly. Before I could answer, Janelle jumped in. "She's got tons of free time," she said, smirking over her mimosa. "Still figuring things out, right?" A few laughs. My father chuckled. Nobody corrected her. I didn't flinch. I looked down at my plate, cut into the avocado toast. It tasted like cardboard. I'd heard it before, hundreds of times. She always couched it in a joke. People laughed because it was easier than asking questions. They never noticed how carefully I picked my words, how deliberately I stayed vague. But something about today lodged in my chest. 16 years ago, I got accepted into a competitive STEM program. I told my parents at the dinner table. Janelle had a dance recital that weekend. They didn't come to my award ceremony. I ate alone in the back of the auditorium with a participation ribbon that meant more to me than they would ever know. Back in the restaurant, the conversation shifted to real estate. Janelle was talking about finally looking at investment properties. My mother beamed. "She's always had drive," my father added, as if announcing the weather. "Delphine's always been the introspective one." There it was. Again. The table went quiet for a second, just long enough for the words to echo. I took a sip of my now cold coffee and tried to swallow the familiar heat in my throat. My mom looked away. Janelle smiled like she'd won something. I stood up too calmly. "I have an early call tomorrow," I said. They nodded. They always did. When I got home, I opened my laptop and pulled up the internal dashboard of Ethereum Systems. The bonus review file was already there. Janelle's performance metrics were solid. Of course they were. She was always better at performance than substance. My cursor hovered over the approval button. A knock echoed in my memory, the sound of my 17-year-old self closing her bedroom door while Janelle's party raged downstairs. No one noticed I wasn't at the cake table. I clicked approve. Let's see how ambition feels when it's gift-wrapped in my signature. Rain streaked the windows like claw marks. It was past midnight, and the only light in my condo came from my laptop. The dashboard blinked in front of me. Janelle's name, performance metrics, bonus amount, $220,000. I rested my finger over the approve button. One click, and she'd never know the irony. I imagined her smiling at her paycheck, feeling victorious. I pictured her thanking Corbin, not realizing it was me who held the pen behind the curtain. She wouldn't thank me. She never had. The raindrops beaded and slid down the glass like little escapes, disappearing into the dark. I clicked. Approved. Some crowns aren't worn. They're handed off in silence. The next day, I passed her cubicle. She didn't see me. She was too busy telling a colleague. Finally, someone in leadership recognizes talent. I mean, that bonus? Long overdue. I kept walking. "You're celebrating a victory I designed, and you don't even know who built the stage." Corbin forwarded a legal memo later that afternoon. My name was on it. Well, the name that mattered. Duvall. Due to changes in corporate structure, all co-founders were required to confirm visibility status within 30 days. Otherwise, operational authority would be suspended. So this was the cost of silence. 16 years ago, I started my first internship in a male-dominated divvy team. One of the engineers used to call me Quiet Spice. He thought it was funny. I corrected him. HR told me to be less sensitive, so I stopped correcting, stopped explaining. And somewhere between then and now, silence became armor. Corbin messaged me that evening. You need to decide. I can't protect your seat forever. I typed, I know. Then deleted it. Then typed again. I'll think about it. He replied with a single period. Message received. I went to the bathroom, flipped on the light. The mirror didn't feel like home. I stared at the woman staring back. Hair tied, hoodie half zipped, eyes tired. Delphine Duvall, I said aloud. Just to hear it, it sounded foreign, still mine. Not yet, I whispered. The next morning, I brewed coffee with shaky hands. The notification blinked on screen. Subject, final warning, title disclosure required 1 more inch, and I wouldn't just lose the credit. I'd lose the company I built in silence. The first thing that gave me away was the ink. Janelle held the envelope in her perfectly manicured hands, eyes scanning the bonus approval form. She flipped the page once, then back again, her brow pinched as she read the signature at the bottom. D. Duvall, she muttered, just loud enough for the intern sitting across from her to glance up. That's not Corbin, she said to no one in particular. I was 2 desks over, blending in as usual. She didn't look at me. She never did. By lunch, the name was rolling on her tongue like a new puzzle. She mentioned it in the break room, smirking over a turkey sandwich. Apparently someone named Duvall signed off on my bonus, she said, feigning amusement. I thought Corbin did all final approvals. Guess there's a secret Santa at this company. Laughter followed, not because it was funny, but because people laugh when Janelle talks. It's safer that way. I returned to my desk and watched her from the corner of my eye. Her smile had cracked, just a little, but enough for me to see the shift. That night, she searched the name on LinkedIn. I know because the security logs flagged it. Duvall plus Ethereum. Nothing came up. Of course it didn't, I'd made sure of that. Her suspicion turned from curiosity to strategy by Monday. She marched into HR with a purpose so polished it looked casual. I just wanted to check something, she told Alicia with a too-sweet smile, about the way bonuses are structured. Transparency is important, right? I just wouldn't want someone pushing funds to their friends or anything. Alicia didn't flinch. She was better than that. All bonuses go through proper internal approval channels, she said. Duvall is a valid approver. Sure, Janelle replied, eyes sharp now. But who is Duvall? An internal director? Does he work in finance? She works in tech. Interesting. She left with nothing but more questions. But I could feel the pulse in her curiosity now. Faster, louder. By afternoon, she'd texted someone in payroll. Need a list of all directors with the last name Duvall. Quietly. I knew, because I saw the request come through. By Wednesday, she was drawing connections on her desk. Printouts, red pens, initials circled. Her office looked like a conspiracy wall. She was unraveling something, and I was watching it happen from 2 panes of glass away. She's circling the drain, I whispered to myself. And I'm the storm she doesn't see coming. Then came the expense sheet. Quarterly financials. She spotted it by accident, tucked behind a vendor compliance form. 1 page, 3 lines of approval. Line 3, CTO signature D. Duvall. Her eyes didn't blink. CTO? She said aloud. I saw her from across the floor, holding that paper like it might burn through her fingers. She was finally getting close. I don't know who she is, she whispered, but I'm going to find her. The break room was louder than usual. Snack wrappers crinkling, someone pouring Diet Coke too fast, the hum of the microwave ticking down behind conversations that weren't meant to be overheard. I wasn't eavesdropping. I was walking by. I mean, she's always here late, Janelle said, her voice polished and flippant. Like, girl, staying in the office after hours isn't going to get you promoted. It's kind of sad. The laughter that followed was low, easy, familiar, the kind people fall into when they're trying to bond through mockery. I didn't stop walking, didn't let my face change, but I heard it, every word. They didn't know who I was, and still, they laughed at me. I stepped into the elevator without looking back, watched the mirrored doors close around my reflection, warping it at the edges like a warning. I'd seen that expression before, just never on my own face. I was never invisible. They just refused to look. That night, I pulled the security footage. It was easy. I'd built the permissions myself years ago. I scrubbed through the break room camera, soundless, gray-toned. There she was, leaning on the counter, pantomiming a hunched walk, mimicking the way I moved, like a tired ghost. More laughter. One hand fluttered over her mouth, pretending to whisper. She was laughing at me, without even knowing. Corbin knocked once before stepping into my office. He paused when he saw what I was watching. "She doesn't know it's you," he said quietly. I didn't take my eyes off the screen. "She doesn't care who it is." He sat down across from me, rubbed the bridge of his nose like he was bracing for something. "We need to talk about the silence." I looked at him, not confused, just tired. "You built half this company, Del. You're the spine, but they're starting to treat you like smoke, like an echo, and it's because you let them." I stayed quiet. "They laugh because you've given them a shadow, but you're more real than any of them, more permanent. You just don't let them see it." He wasn't wrong, but he wasn't all right either. 16 years ago, a man at my first real job tried to take credit for a UI prototype I'd built. When I spoke up, I was labeled difficult, said I was too intense. HR offered a mediation, told me to adjust expectations. I learned something valuable in that mess. If you're quiet, you control the story. If you're loud, they write it for you. Corbin leaned forward. "You're not alone this time?" I nodded once, not as agreement, as acknowledgement. The next day I was walking toward the stairwell when I saw her. Janelle. She was coming down the hallway with a stack of files, laughing at something on her phone. Her eyes lifted and locked with mine. For the first time, she really looked at me. She didn't smile, neither did I. There was no mask in her gaze, no performance, just calculation, uncertainty, and maybe something that looked a lot like fear. She's starting to guess, and I'm not sure I want to stop her. The call came just after 9 on Sunday night, like most of my mother's calls did. After she'd had her wine, after Janelle had finished venting, after she'd convinced herself she was being diplomatic. "Sweetheart," she started, her voice syrupy but strained. "I just wanted to check in. Janelle says you've been distant. She mentioned you barely acknowledge her at work." I paused. The lamp by my bedside flickered slightly in the corner of my eye. I knew where this was going. "She's struggling, Del, and you're in a position to help. Why don't you?" That question sliced deeper than she realized. 16 years ago, I came home from an internship at MIT's summer program. I'd coded a platform prototype that would later become the seed of Ethereum. They asked how the flight was. That was it. Meanwhile, Janelle brought home a B+ on her midterm, and there were balloons taped to the fridge. Back in the present, I pressed the phone to my ear and whispered, "Okay, Mom, I hear you. But in my mind, you still don't see me." The next morning, I walked into the office earlier than usual. No music in my ears, no coffee, just focus. CSR meeting, 10 a.m. I sat in the back of the boardroom, unnoticed as usual. Janelle stood confidently in front of the screen, clicking through a pitch about a new social outreach initiative. Clean formatting, clear impact goals, and the title? The exact one I had typed 6 months ago, down to the subhead. She didn't even change the title. Corbin shifted in his chair. I could see it in his face. He recognized the phrasing too. But he said nothing. Neither did I. Instead, I pulled up my phone, searched for the draft I'd emailed myself, the one labeled CSR_NC_Youth Phase 1. Forwarded to Corbin Hale. Subject, archive reference. That night, I walked alone to the rooftop patio. The wind slapped against my coat. I opened my notes app, tapped out 2 lines, deleted them, tried again, deleted again. They wanted me silent, but they forgot silence doesn't mean surrender. An alert buzzed. 1 new email from Corbin Hale. Message noted. That was all I needed. Later, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror. The fluorescent lights didn't forgive. My eyes looked older, sharper. My hands gripped the edge of the sink. "You want my silence, Janelle?" I whispered. "This is the last week you'll hear it." The rooftop terrace had always been Corbin's spot. Golden hour light stretching long over the skyline, glass railing catching the sun like a blade's edge. I used to meet him here for coffee, for quick sinks. That night, it wasn't me. It was Janelle. I watched through the upper lobby windows, unseen as always. She laughed too hard, angled her body toward him, touched his arm once, too lightly, too deliberately. And when the sun dipped low enough to soften the space between them, she leaned in. "I like you, Corbin. I know you see me." He didn't flinch, just gave her the same professional calm he gave everyone. "You're smart, Janelle, but I don't mix business with feelings. And this has nothing to do with anyone else." She pulled back like she'd touched something hot, tried to laugh, but her voice didn't hold. "Right," she said, blinking. "Of course, this isn't personal." She left her wine glass behind. That told me everything. The next morning, Alicia in HR forwarded me an email. Subject line, "Serious workplace concern." I didn't even have to open it to know, but I did anyway. There's a clear pattern of favoritism happening in this company. Certain individuals are protected, promoted, and given special access. Others, those who actually show up, are sidelined. It's not about merit, it's something else. Her name wasn't on it, but we both knew. Slack pinged with side-channel threads. My name didn't appear there either, but I felt it moving underneath the surface, like gas under glass, waiting to catch. She wanted a war. She'd get one. I knocked on Corbin's door before I could change my mind. "I'm done whispering in corners." He looked up, didn't speak, just waited. "I want a room, closed doors, board presence, this Thursday." His brow lifted. "You sure?" I nodded once. "She made this personal. I'll make it honest." He tapped a few keys, booked the slot. 3 names appeared in the calendar invite: Corbin Hale, Delphine Duvall, Janelle Knox. When I got back to my desk, I stared at the screen. My reflection hovered in the black strip of the monitor. This time I wouldn't walk away first. The door to the 10th floor glass conference room shut behind me with a soft click. Across the table sat Janelle, her arms crossed, eyes narrowed, already poised for a fight she thought she could win. Corbin stood off to the side, silent, neutral. She thought this was a trap. She thinks this is retaliation, I told myself. She doesn't know this is justice. I sat down and placed a thick black folder on the table. Its tab read, "Operations History." "You wanted transparency, Janelle," I said. "Here it is." She didn't reach for it, just kept her chin tilted like she still had the upper hand. I opened it myself and began laying out page after page. Memos, hiring approvals, strategic code sign-offs, budget approvals, including hers. Every single one signed D. Duvall. Her gaze flicked across the documents. She blinked once, then again. Finally, her voice cracked. "You're telling me that's you?" I didn't blink. "Yes." "You're kidding." "I built the systems you use. I approved the paycheck you flaunt. I created the platform you now pretend to lead." She pushed back in her chair, arms limp at her sides now. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you never asked." Corbin still hadn't spoken. "I stayed hidden," I continued, "not because I was scared, but because I was tired of proving myself, of performing for people who never saw me unless I failed." There was silence, the kind that cuts deeper than shouting. I looked her in the eye. "You can keep pretending this company runs on charm, or you can start acknowledging what built it." She swallowed hard. "So what now?" "That's up to you." 2 days later, the all-hands meeting opened with the usual corporate notes. Then Corbin stepped forward and tapped the mic. "Before we close," he said, "we want to acknowledge someone whose work shaped everything you see around you." He looked at me. I stood slowly. "Behind every stable launch," he continued, "is code that never failed, systems that never broke, and one name that's been on every milestone we've hit." I walked up in heels I hadn't worn in 3 years. The lights didn't shake me, neither did the stairs. "This company was never about visibility for me," I told them. "But it's time you saw the architect." A wave of hushed murmurs spread across the room. From the back, Janelle watched, unmoving, her face unreadable. I stepped back from the podium. The applause was polite, reserved. But it wasn't for them. It was for me. As I stepped down, I passed Janelle. Our eyes met. She opened her mouth, then closed it. For once, she didn't have a comeback, and I didn't need one. The brunch was held at a golf club just outside Charlotte. White linens, fake laughter, and a buffet no one actually enjoyed. The kind of event where appearances mattered more than appetite. I hadn't planned to go, but then Mom called and said, "It would mean a lot to your father." And like every other time, I said yes, out of habit, not hope. We were seated beneath a skylight. the kind that traps sunlight like a lie. Janelle sat across from me, perfectly composed, as if nothing in her world had cracked just 1 week earlier. My parents flanked the center like they always did, together, polished, performative. Then came the toast. "To Janelle," Dad said, raising his glass with too much pride. Always the one with real drive in this family. A pause. No one corrected him. Not Mom, not Janelle, not even me. I smiled, polite, neutral, a gesture rehearsed over decades. "You're still blind, but that's your burden to carry now." 2 days earlier, I had stood in the boardroom, quietly delivering a presentation that sealed the largest contract Ethereum had ever closed. The CFO clapped. One board member stood. No cameras, no press, just results. That same afternoon, Janelle's CSR report was flagged for incomplete metrics. Her name now sat beneath the words, "Pending revision." A printed email waited on my desk. From CFO subject, initiative metrics, outstanding work. "You saved us." Again. I didn't forward it to anyone. I didn't even respond. That evening, I opened my laptop and began typing. I listed every project I built, every initiative I led, every bonus I signed, every time I stayed quiet when I could have screamed. Then one line, "Today, I don't need them to know. I just need me to remember." I saved it in a folder labeled unsent. Late morning at the brunch, Janelle caught up with me near the golf path. She wasn't smiling. "I didn't know how much you carried," she said, voice quieter than I'd ever heard it. "I still don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," I replied. "Just don't repeat it." She nodded, but her eyes darted away. It wasn't an apology, but it wasn't an attack either. It wasn't peace, but it wasn't war. After dessert, I walked to my car alone, opened the trunk. Inside was a box labeled Old Awards. Things I'd stopped displaying after college. Trophies, certificates, handwritten notes from professors. At the top, my first coding trophy, earned at 14. I held it for a moment. I earned this. They didn't show up. I placed it gently in the passenger seat beside me. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. Maybe I'll stop hiding. Or maybe I'll just shine quietly, exactly as I've always done. The silence here wasn't empty. It was full, of breath, of space, of everything I didn't have to say anymore. I woke up to the scent of pine and frost, the sound of nothing but wind brushing against the cabin walls. No phone buzzing, no screens blinking, just Stephen breathing softly beside me, his arm draped across the pillow where my head had rested an hour earlier. I pulled on a sweater, poured coffee into a ceramic mug, and stepped outside. The sky was pale and indifferent. Fog curled around the hills like secrets refusing to burn off. It was the kind of morning that felt like an apology and a warning all at once. This was what peace sounded like. Awkward, unfamiliar, but real. The reception had ended in a way that was quiet. Too quiet. No screaming, no scenes. Just Casey slipping out a side door before anyone could ask questions. My mother didn't move. She just stayed seated, lips pressed into a tight line, as if still trying to figure out how to spin it. She never said a word. Stephen's parents hugged me tightly that night. His father whispered, "We've never been more proud of anyone." His mother looked at me like I had survived something they all knew I shouldn't have had to. There were no public apologies, just a new kind of distance. And somehow, that hurt more than if they'd shouted. A week later, Casey texted me. "I was just trying to be funny. Can we talk?" I didn't respond. 2 days after that, a voice note from my mother. A pause. A sigh. Then, "I guess this is what you wanted." Delete. No hesitation. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't even about closure. It was about space. I sat on the porch and flipped through my journal. 3 months ago, on a page wrinkled from a spilled coffee ring, I had scribbled, "All I want is to walk into a room and not be doubted." Now, I wrote beneath it, "I don't need their applause, I just needed to believe myself." Inside, I heard Stephen stirring. The kettle whistled low. His steps were soft on the wood floors. He joined me, a blanket wrapped around his shoulders, sat down beside me, sipped his coffee, said nothing at first. Then he looked out at the trees and said, "You didn't just marry me. You reclaimed yourself." I laughed softly. "So why does it still ache?" He shrugged, pulling me closer. "Healing is quiet. but it still counts. We sat there, watching the sun break over the hills, light catching on frost-tipped branches like diamonds too stubborn to melt. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I had to earn the moment. I just let it happen. Maybe we all have that one person in the family, the one who takes up too much space, too much praise, and never sees what it costs the rest of us. For years, I thought staying quiet was the price I had to pay to keep the peace. But the truth is, silence is not the same as grace, and strength doesn't always come with a spotlight. If you're carrying something alone, your work, your worth, your wounds, I want you to know this. You don't need anyone's applause to validate your value. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is own your story quietly, but completely. Have you ever been underestimated by your own family? Or had to prove yourself in a room that never saw you to begin with? I'd love to hear your story. Drop a 1 in the comments if this video touched you. Tell me where you're watching from. Or if this didn't resonate with you, let me know why. It's okay to disagree. And if you want more stories like this, real, raw, and rooted in truth, don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the bell, because sometimes the quiet ones have the loudest stories.